Hi everyone, Matt Haslam here, and as a small business person and as a vendor at many different events throughout the year, I have learned you're never really done improving your booth to make it better at the next event, at the next craft fair that you're going to. You're never really done. Now, I teach an entire course on how to brand your booth, how to build it out, make it look professional, and make it stand out compared to other booths at every event you go to. We talk about color schemes and how to make your color scheme sell for you and bring in extra donations or bring in extra sales for you. We talk all about how to make it more professional of a booth to let people know more about your brand online so you can sell later on as well. So we do all of that in the course that's linked down below in how to be a successful vendor at events. But today we're talking about infrastructure because one of the things that we sell the most are pins. And so we'll sell, quite a few pins throughout the day at many different events that we go to. So our problem is that we have so many of these pins that we now have to transport 30 of them. And yes, they sell well at events for us, but transporting 30 of them is a challenge just because every single one we have to transport at least 20 or 30 of them in that little bin, and we don't know what's going to sell that day compared to others. So we decided last year to come up with this solution where we have tons of plastic drawers. There's 10 drawers in total where our pins are stored, and then on the front we have it all numbered, buttons 1 through 3, 4 through 6, and so on. This way, if a person comes up to our booth and says, "Hey, I want pin number 4, we know exactly where to go in our drawer set to get that. Unfortunately, transporting these is not as simple as it sounds because we don't have the room to store this tall of an item in our vehicle. We go in a SUV, so this doesn't fit in there standing up, and we can't really turn it over because then all of our pins fall out. So our solution to that was to create little dividers out of cardboard. And as you might be able to tell, that did not work so well last year because you would basically take these out of this rack, put them somewhere in the car wherever you can fit it, and stack them one on top of each other. Now, can you see where that can go wrong? Because I certainly didn't last year. When these are heavy and on top of each other, moving around in the back of a car, just slightly, it does bend these down, and so these will get crushed, they'll get damaged, they'll pop out sometimes even though they're taped solidly in because it's just cardboard, and so you'll have a mess on your hands every single event that we go to. And I set up the booth while my husband figures out the pins situation, and he'll fix this every event. So this year, we decided to do something about it. And what we're doing is we are creating foam core bins for these. And that way it's a lot stronger of a material. It's all going to be hot glued together, and hopefully that withstands a lot more pressure while we're on the road and stuff like that, so they don't move around, so we don't have an issue when we get to an event of we need to fix every single drawer before we even start the event. So that's what we're going to do today. So first off, we're going to create a base plate for this. That way it goes on the very, very bottom, and then we're going to create 2 vertical ones just like this. Honestly, it's no different, but now it's going to be stronger. There's 2 verticals in here as dividers, but they're going to be hot glued in, and we're also going to create a backing plate for this on the back of the drawer. That way it's sturdy this time instead of the old way of doing things. So we're going to measure this really quickly and figure out exactly what we need, and then we'll hopefully start cutting a template today and figure out the other 9 drawers another day once we have a solid template to go on and we know all the measurements we need. Then we can figure out how to make 9 more of them in assembly. So I figured out the bottom of this is 9 5/8 and 13 5/8 of a bottom. The top of it is definitely a different size, as you can probably tell from this. It does spread out a little bit, so we're gonna have to deal with that a little bit. But first off, I want to create the bottom plate so we know exactly what we're working with, and I also would then know the thickness of the foam board to figure out exactly how high we need the different sections to go. So first off, let's create a base plate in full here, and then we'll figure out the rest as we go along. That's like the first step. What I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna measure everything out, hopefully, first. And then we'll figure it out. Alright, now, one of the things I learned the most from watching videos online, especially like Adam Savage from Tested and from Mythbusters, he does a really great job at explaining how to do like foam core models of different spaces or homes. I watched a lot of his videos to learn how to do what I'm doing in a small little scale here of making drawers. So definitely check that out. I am going to use the factory edge of this 20 by 30 sheet. We're getting 15 more of them later this week. So you just have to trust the factory edge, unfortunately, because hopefully it's perfect and you don't have to worry about that. I'm going to use this metal yardstick, which we actually bought just for this. Why metal? You're going to see in a moment, because we eventually are going to have to cut all of these boards with knives, and when you're doing that, one of the biggest recommendations I got from like Adam Savage and other people was to use a metal edge of your ruler, and that way your knife doesn't go all over the place and you don't have squiggly lines throughout the entire thing. So that's something I'm going to be definitely doing on this build, because we want everything to be as straight as possible. Then we're going to go 9 5/8 that way. This is very tedious, but the good part is once you have all the pieces, you can just template it out 15 times, or 9 more times. And if you care at all about the table underneath, you want to definitely handle that first. Whoopsie. Another thing I learned very well from Adam Savage is that you want to make sure that the foam just falls off. You don't like break it or anything like that. You don't have to twist. Nope. Just has to fall off, and that is the best way to ensure you're getting a clean cut. Now, I've been like planning this for a long time. Woohoo! I'm very happy. I'm happy that worked first try. So that's the size piece we definitely want for the bottom. Now, to figure out the other parts. That's the much harder part. Not at all. And this is why we create templates, honestly. Because the first one was way too thin. So my measurements in these angles are just gonna have to be ultra precise, and trying to figure that out for this, it's very difficult to figure that out on both sides. To figure out exactly what that angle is, I don't have a protractor, so that's not gonna happen today. But what I can do is create a 2.5 inch tall beam and make it square. That's what I'm gonna do, because that's a whole lot easier. So we want 13.5 minus 1/4, so 13.25. Right now we're building the back plate for this. That way we actually have some sturdiness to the foam core, because if you just put 2 uprights on foam core, it's never going to last. So we're actually building a back plate, so it has a T intersection, and that makes it a hell of a lot stronger. So now we start assembling. Hopefully everything fits. It does. Now we got our pieces. And all we have to do is repeat it 9 more times and then start hot gluing everything together all at the end. Because right now what would happen is if I started hot gluing all of this together, these no longer are templates for the other 9 that I need to build, and I need to just recreate all these measurements over and over and over again, instead of simply putting it down on a piece of bigger foam core and saying, I need that piece. And that's gonna be a lot harder to do over and over and over again. So what I'm gonna do is keep these as a template and then just use them over and over until I'm ready and I have all the pieces cut out. But in the meantime, I can take some extra measurements and make sure that everything is square and correct. And we're also going to mark up this into thirds. That way I know exactly where to place our dividers. Yeah, that sounds like a plan. Alright, one thing I did also learn from Adam Savage, great builder, is when you're making measurements, always put how many you need first and then put the @ sign. Because I used to do like, I need 10 times this measurement. And the problem with that is when you're saying I need 10 times 13.5 by 9.5 inches, that gets very confusing of which of them do you need, especially if you have a measurement that's not a fraction. So for instance, if I said I need 10 13 by 9 inch pieces, which one of those is the measurement and which one of those is how many I need? So I always have learned from him to put how many you need, then the @ symbol, like an email address, and then your measurement. That way you know you need 9 of those pieces at that measurement. So that's definitely something I learned from him. And we're going to now find the measurements for dividing this up. Oh, girl. Doing is I'm using a little bit of masking tape or like painter's tape or something like that. to like dry test run this entire piece together before I start gluing it together where everything's finalized and I can't take it apart. This is to ensure that it not only fits in there and works well, but this is also to ensure that it fits my products well and it will actually serve us well. And that's why we do it. To make sure everything works. That's not flat. So we need everything 1/4 inch down, I would say. Well, the good news is it's working as a divider. Now I just need it 1/4 inch lower before I start making a lot more cuts and a lot more pieces. All right, so while I was away, I created another entire set of pieces for another drawer. We're gonna need 9 of them anyway. I might as well, use up what I have before more foam stock comes in later this week for the rest. But I also had to lower the amount. So this was 2.5 before, now it's 2 1/4, just because it basically wouldn't fit in the drawer. I was stupid and I didn't account for the bottom piece of foam already there, so it was a little bit too high. So now it's just the right amount. I also, so I can back in there. All right. I also marked lines on this to where these separators have to go. I marked little lines on the ends to where they have to line up, especially at the top where they have to line up. And I also got our glue gun already. Now, one thing about glue guns for foam core is that if you have it at too high of a heat, it actually will melt through the middle foam part of foam core. Now, unfortunately, if you put a hot glue gun at low temperature, by the time you get done, the entire run, especially for something that's like 13 inches long like this, it's going to dry at this end before you get this end done and ready to, the whole thing to get ready to go down. Especially when you consider I actually have to place the entire side here and here in order to put it down. So I actually have like 17 inches of glue to put down before I do that. So we're going with a higher temperature. It might burn a little bit of the foam. I realize that, okay? But hopefully it doesn't do that too much. So I have all my parts ready for a second drawer. This way, basically, I can see if my measurements are right before we go making a whole bunch of other ones. But I also have a second set of these right here as my templates for when we get more foam core in later this week. So I can just put these down and measure them out. So I have one set for my template for everything else. And now I want to make a second set to make sure this template and these measurements all work when it's all glued together. Because taping them together is a great way to see, does it work to my eyes? Does it fit into my drawer? Whatever you need to fit it into. But now I want to make a set with actual glue to see, does it work when it's all fully assembled the way it should with glue in between? So that's what we're going to do next. And to do that, we have a Shure Bonder dual temp one. This allows you to go high or low with your temperature. I'm going high with my temperature because, I have a lot of glue to place before I place those down. But one good thing that I suggest is to mark off where you want to line things up before you start gluing anything. So when I start getting, 8 more of these pieces in, I'm gonna have all my pieces here ready to go. Everything's gonna be marked, and then I'm gonna turn my hot glue on in order to do it all at once, rather than, oh, where does this go? Where does this middle piece end up? I have no idea to make sure it's straight. No more of that. It's all right here ready to go. So let's get started with our first piece. This is always the most nerve-wracking one, I will say. And I haven't done this in a while. So let's see. Oh, and you're gonna burn your hands, probably. Just be careful. Oh, and I'm also going to get a couple glue sticks ready to go at the ready, just for my own benefit. Yeah. See how fast that dries? It's awesome. And that's why I'm afraid of the lower temperature to do a whole lot here at a time, just because it's already drying on the high temperature this way. Now, the question becomes, do we want to put these two in first? I guess we do. It'll be easier, right? And then we'll put the end on. Yeah, let's do that. Now I'm leaving enough of a bead of hot glue that it's going to stick. Don't be afraid of using too much. It'll just squish out the other side if it happens where it's too much. I'm also putting some at the end here, where I'm gonna put it. And now, so what I did was I put lines on this, and I don't know if you're gonna be able to see it or not, but the lines are actually in the very midpoint of the foam core. That way I know about where I need to put it. If it's off a tiny bit, like in 16th or a 32nd of an inch, I don't really care, but that way I know somewhat of the line I need to follow. So now that that one's in, it worked pretty well, I have to say. It worked a lot better than I thought it would, and not too much of a problem. All right, second one. Now for this final piece, rather than scoring and putting glue here and here and here, what I'm gonna do is actually put glue on the bigger piece and those, then put it on, because it's the final piece and it's just easier. Hopefully, I'm actually not going through as much glue as I thought I would, so that's good, because we have a lot more to do. All right, so I see about where I need to put it in here. Oh, and also, since the last time you saw me, I decided to add a second side, front and back, to this. So before it was just this one side, now I decided to add the second side, so it'll be a lot stronger, hopefully, than my original design. Because otherwise, at the very end here, you just have two pieces hanging off that have no support. Now it's literally encased, so everything has full support both sides. I'm also going to add just a little bit of strength to this on each corner. Get that in a little bit. So it's extra strong. We have no problems later. Now I'm gonna let that dry, and we shall see how it works with actual merchandise in. Now, I want to see an actual test. So we're going to take a lot of pins from this. We sell a lot of pins, okay? Don't want to hear it. We do a lot of pins. And these suck, as you can probably tell already. They're not very strong in the office, let alone, you know, when you're on the road and transporting these. So that's why we're doing this. Pins don't seem heavy until you have 50 of them in every drawer. Like, look how bent that was and how easy it was to take out. So that should never happen. And when I was building this a year and a half ago, because we prepare for our summer events in January, February, like a year ago when I was building this originally, I was like, yeah, tape and cardboard are plenty strong enough to hold up. No, they were not. Alright, so that works. Now, issue is, it actually bent a little bit in production, but I don't think that's going to matter too much. Let me just see. No, not going to matter. Alright. Plenty strong enough. See, that's what I was afraid of, is the glue actually couldn't make this bend just slightly. And that's really bad. So, alright. What I'm also going to do is label this before I start putting stuff in it. We're going to label this so that way we always know where everything should go, and my staff should be, you know, good about doing it. Sorry if you're watching, staff. Now we know what should go in each box. And we also know what the front is of each. So that way, hopefully nothing goes wrong, ever. I'm putting these in carefully, just because I don't want to already crash it. Hopefully it survives. Anyway. I'm wondering if we should put them on the side. That might be an idea. Because we could do that. A little bit more efficient. We're going for efficiency. So, rather than storing them like that upright, I'm thinking about storing them on their side. That might be best. For something we only have like 10 of or something, it's fine. But if we have like 100 of them to fit into this small space, that might be best to do. Alright, so now we have a completed rack, which I want to point out, much better than that where they're falling over all over the place. This turned out so much better than I thought. It's a lot more organized. I'm very, very happy with the results. Now I just need to make 9 more of them. So this is the final product. I'm very, very happy with the result. There were a lot of parts. By the way, if you watched in the time lapse, I actually did notch off every single one that I was making. That way I didn't make too many or too little of each part before everything was ready. Then I assembled everything into their different classifications, so I had all my parts in one place for each type, and then I finally brought them all together with hot glue. These turned out so much better than I thought originally. The old versions were just cardboard, and they kind of sucked while on the road because they would bend over. There was nothing attaching each divider to the bottom of that drawer, and so it just went all over the place. We had pins that went underneath that. They would get mixed up, and it would take a long time at every single venue to get set up and ready with all of our pins in the right bins. So this helps a lot. It offers a really sturdy way to do it, where basically if we have two different drawers out, which we need in our car because again, we can't store this upright. Now, you know, that ain't going anywhere, and I'm very, very happy. We got a lot of foam core, so we're going to be doing some more foam projects in the future to improve our setup for this year. This is behind the scenes. This is like infrastructure stuff, but it really helps my staff and I know exactly where everything is at every event without fail. So I'm even thinking about this year, honestly, just putting some, like taking this and wrapping it in like some sort of like cellophane like you use in your kitchen, just so even if this tips over in the car, there's nothing that's gonna fall out. I'm honestly thinking that might be worth it just for a couple bucks. You know, it's not that much per event to do like that, and it might be worth it in the long run if we see that. But honestly, this is such an improvement where every drawer has a professional rack now. So that is our one-day build. I'm very happy with the result. But like I said, being a vendor means you're always improving something behind the scenes, something to make it look better to the audience, or something infrastructure-wise like we did today to make it look better and work better for you and your staff. So definitely go check out the course we have in the description down below. We have it linked. It's a 4.5 hour long course. You get to learn everything about branding your booth, building it and making it look professional so you can bring in sales and bring in donations for you organizations and charities out there. It's very well done, and we have great reviews on it so far. So I'm very happy with how that turned out as well. So go check that out and learn how to be a professional vendor and bring in sales and donations at your booth, and all about branding. So go check that out now in the link in the description down below. As for now, I am your host, Matt Haslam. Have a great day, everyone, and bye for now.